So, have you had any props that you might label as, I don't know, failures?
Huh. Probably more than I can remember. I just can't think of it. Well, okay. Um, and I don't know what makes them failures. Sometimes it's because they don't do what they were supposed to do, and I don't know if it's necessarily a failure or if it's just that it just didn't work. Um, but well, there was a mirror for Mary Poppins, and I think it was more of a disconnect as to what the design was supposed to be, as to what they wanted. So what I gave him was not at all what he wanted. Um,
In what
and so
way?
we flipped over.
What
Uh,
was the mirror supposed to do?
it was supposed to come out of the bag, and be a long mirror, but I couldn't do like a full length mirror because we couldn't. It had to come through. Were you here for Mary Poppins
No, that was the last show before I started.
before you started? Okay.
I
The
saw it.
design, the design concept was it was supposed to be a pop up book.
It's so funny that you mentioned this. I'm going to let you go on, but
Oh, to
Derek
Derek,
spent a lot of time talking about this as well.
it was a tough set. I thought it was a marvelous idea. Had we had a little more time, honestly, I think it's just our schedule is hard. It is hard. You've brought this up 22 shows. So when we go into, we don't have a lot of time between one show going down and the other show going up. If this had been like the first show of the season and we had had 2 or 3 months to get it loaded in and worked on it, it probably would have been much more successful. But as it was, the way this thing was, it was supposed to fold down on itself and then pop up as a house, which meant everything that I had to do could only go through these little tiny, because all my furniture had to be able to fold down flat and then come up like a pop-up book would do. So
Oh,
like the beds and
wow.
the dressers, so they were so everything that Mary Poppins pulled out of her her bag, it came out of two places. It came out of the bed and it came out of this one little bedside table. And
And for
both
the
of
record, I keep stopping you because I want to make
uh-huh.
sure everybody understands. For the record, this furniture and these houses that needed to fold flat and then unfold to 3 dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
we're not talking about cardboard. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about full wood, solid
Yep.
stuff.
Staircases. And it was a triptych, which meant it had three walls that centered on each other. So this wall that this bed is on is another scene on the backside of it. So there's like this little space in between. So everything that has to come out of her bag magically tall has to go in, come up 90 degrees out of her bag. So it's
Mm.
coming. So
So it exists in the wall, and she's got to look like it's coming out of her bag.
well, no, there's a stage person who in between this
Oh,
little space had to crawl in underneath the bed and then feed things through up to her. So I had to go through and then go up.
excellent.
So it was quite funny. We had a great time laughing about it. But so this mirror was supposed to come through, and Rick and I had talked about a mirror. I had designed it up. I had drawn it up. It had this base. It was a Victorian type thing. So it had this base. It had a long post that came up, and then there was a mirror at the top. I thought it was I didn't like it. I didn't like the design, but he approved it. And I was like, okay. So I built it. Well, the first day he saw it was tech. This is one thing you never do. Never surprise a director at tech.
Oh,
You
tell
learn
me
these
about
things.
that. Tell me
But
about
Mary
it.
Poppins was this thing
Right.
that was all encompassed. And since you've already talked about Derek, you know some of the stuff that went on with it. And so it was probably the toughest show I've ever done. And when she pulled this thing out, I got the what the is that? And I was like, it's the mirror that you approved. And he's like, that's not what and I was by that time I was tired. I was mad. That was
Sure.
a long tech. And I
But
this
what
was
do you
the first
do?
This is the first and only time I walked over with my computer. I said, here's the email. Here's you saying yes.
Right.
And he's like, I don't like it. I said, I don't like it either. I thought it was a failure. I hate it. What else can we do? And he's like,
Yeah. So what do you do in that situation? There's something that
yeah,
you're in tech you don't like. What do you do?
you deal with it. You find something else. The one thing theater has taught me completely is you just let go of that failure. There's not, yes, I may feel like I'm brooding on it, but you don't. It's just like, okay, we all hate it. What do we do? And I said, well, I mean, the easiest thing is I've got little top mirrors that would look a little tall. She wouldn't normally carry it in there. But it's small enough they could just hand it to her and she could pull it out and set it on the counter. And he's like, okay. And so we did that, and it worked. It
Awesome.
wasn't as magical, but we had already pulled out a plant, uh, a light that when she got it out and set it down, lit up, and a coat rack. So we've already pulled out 3 magically tall, big things. Why not? Let's just do a mirror. I mean, it's not that hard. So I just got a really pretty, intricate, desk mirror, and they just pulled that out and it was fine. And we just moved on and that was it. So that was one that I can actually think of and say, oh, that didn't even work. It was just horrible.
Yeah, but what was important, and the reason I asked you about it is,
Uh-huh.
what's important is not that there was a failure, but how did you deal with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
There
And you just,
seems to be this this is why I think people are so professional at barter.
Mhm,
Is that, yeah, we have a lot of work to do,
mhm.
but the mindset is if you fail or if something's not working out, you learn from it. That's all. And
Well,
that's the only consequence, is that it's not working. We
it's
don't want to waste people's time, but it's not working. So we come up with a different solution.
right. It's
We
not,
don't sit there and go, I'm a failure, and we don't label people. And if I as the sound designer do something stupid, you as a props master aren't going to be like, you're an idiot.
no.
You might laughingly,
Wait, what were you thinking?
but I'll learn from it.
Yeah.
And at least I tried.
And well, and believe it or not, Mary Poppins was probably, I think, our most shining example of that. I mean, it was a nightmare. I will not say it wasn't, but I mean, the funny thing about it was Mary Poppins is the first time I've ever started this mantra, which is Act One. We have to have Act One done. Because there was no way we were going to be completely ready for it. So I was like, guys, Act One, because we will never make it through more than Act One in the first day of tech. So if we can get Act One done, I can continue to work and build stuff during tech. And then, as we progress. Well, that didn't work with Mary Poppins. Because what happened was when they first found out we were having trouble with the set, all of a sudden Rick's like, well, what can we do? Let's do all the scenes that are open stage without the set on it, without the house on it, which, oh, put us into Act Two.
So those are all in Act Two. So, hey, but we're ready for Act One. We're ready for Act One.
Oh my God. So I have never
I've done that too.
as fast as I possibly could. I mean, costumes and I were just like, we were just throwing stuff on stage, whether it was ready or not. It's like, get it up there, get it working, go. And we never got upset with the fact that stuff wasn't working. It's just like, this doesn't matter. What matters is that we get those actors on stage, we give them something to work with, because they're panicking right now. Because right now, they're not being able to go from A to B in the process that they are used to. So we need to make them feel as good and as comfortable as they possibly can. I don't matter. And that's the one thing that is it's like, I as a person don't matter. It's the show that matters. And so whatever I can do to get us up there and get us moving is what's important. And that was the first time I ever like truly experienced that. And that's really what that was. Everybody just pulled together and said, what do you need? Let's go. What can we get? what are we ready for? Okay, we're ready for these scenes. Okay, we can put these people on. Let's get this one going. And if you don't mind us not being in the building, Rick, we'll be over, we'll be reachable by phone. But here, you can have this scene. You guys can work this. I'm going to be back at the shop getting the next thing ready. And that's the way it was, and that's the way we had to do it. And it was amazing how we just all knuckled down and just did it, because it doesn't matter. This is the most important thing, is the actual final product.
I love that, because so I want to expand on this, what you mean by I don't matter, because I have noted that many artists seem to get caught up in the mystique of being an artist. I'm not talking about barter, I'm talking about in the world.
Okay.
And there are even theaters that get caught up in the mystique of being a highbrow theater artist. And I have this theory that identity kind of gets in the way of actually creating meaningful art. So when you say, I don't matter, the show matters, you're not saying I'm a piece of shit. You're saying I am not going to don a mystique of the artist. I am not going to say I am great, and I am not going to let my ego get in the way of doing a good job. Is that what you mean?
That's exactly it. That it truly, it is not about me. It's truly not about me. And maybe in the end, because in the end, the person who's sitting out there in the audience, they're not going to look at it and say, oh, look, that's, that mirror that Helen did was just, she's amazing because of that mirror. No, it's going to be, wow, look at all the stuff that Mary Poppins pulled out of her bag. That's pretty cool. I wonder how they did it. They're not going to care who it was. They're there to be entertained. They're there to enjoy themselves. And that's what I want them to do. I don't want them wondering, or even pointing me out. It's just a lot to expect if you want everybody to notice you. It's just
Yeah, I feel the same way. As a sound designer, I want to tell the story through I want to tell the same story that everybody else is telling through sound. And if they're thinking about me, the creator, then they're not thinking about what they should be thinking about, which is being lost in the story.
Yeah, they're disconnected, and that's not what I want. I want them to walk out and think, what a great show. Wasn't that fun? Or walk out singing songs from it, or any of that, but
That's
not
amazing.
wondering about that. Yeah.